My name is Ross Mandell. I'm here to educate you on the stock market, on the capital markets. Many of you know that in September of 2014, I self-surrendered to federal prison, FCI Miami. It's a medium security prison, very serious, about 1,100 inmates, a lot of gangs, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, black gangs. It's a very, very small amount of whites. And leaving my life, I left a 10,000 square foot house and I was assigned a cell in Dolphin Unit. It's 66 square feet with two very fit black men with me, guys that became my friends ultimately, Mike Brown and Antonio Henry. And they looked after me for about 10 straight months before I moved into another unit. And they right away had checked out my paperwork. A lot of guys had Googled me. A lot of guys have cell phones in prison. It's illegal, but they do. And knew that I was a big Wall Street guy, stock market guy, taking 100 companies plus public, $140 million, according to the United States government. I defrauded, and that's why I was in prison. And essentially, Henry said, man, I got 20 years for 12 grand, and you got 12 years for 40 million without a gun. Could you teach us about the stock market? That began my journey, education inside the walls of prison. And I was approached over the course of my 9 years and 4 months by dozens and dozens of inmates, officers, etc. People wanted me to teach. I have a knack for communicating. I was very well liked and respected on the compound and all the different places that I was sent to. I was in 4 different places. And so I began to teach Introduction to the Stock Market in FCI Miami. It was approved. I had to go all the way to Washington, D.C., because I was a controversial figure. I was in a lot of press and stuff like that, and they had to pull a lot of strings, my team, to get me in Miami so I could be near my family, which was basically in Boca Raton, Florida. And so we began a journey into education inside prison. And it was very interesting. There's a big appetite, a thirst for more. People have hit bottom, and many of the inmates come to their senses and want to improve their lives for real. And they were fascinated with the stock market. It's the biggest game in the world. $3 trillion changes hands every single day. And so it began. I created a whole curriculum. It had to go all the way to Washington, D.C. It was approved. And it was actually called an ACE course. You actually got credit towards early release, being in good standing, favorable treatment by the staff, etc. If you had this in your as part of your undertakings while you were inside. And I began the course, and we started to talk about intro to the stock market. And it came down to, what is stock? You know, these are companies that trade, pieces of companies. And the guys had a lot of trouble with the word equity, because stock is equity and bonds are debt. Companies that borrow money, they issue bonds, notes, and different sort of derivatives. But what is equity? What is stock? I don't understand when you say I bought Amazon stock on the stock market. What am I actually getting? I said, well, Amazon is a big company. It was incorporated somewhere. It's a corporation. These are all C corporations. And at some point in time, people put some money in, got together, and paid for the founding, which is just a few $100s. And they were issued founder shares, which are shares issued at what they call par value. It's a theoretical number created by bankers for accounting purposes. And they were struggling with these concepts. I don't understand. So what am I buying when I get Amazon stock? It's 120. How do I know if it's going to go higher, if it's lower, if I'm getting a good deal? I said, all right, this is very interesting. And so at some point in time, looking at the crowd, I was packed. There was like 30 people sitting in chairs, another 25 people standing. There were guys in the hallway with notes. Everybody wanted to see what Ross Mandell could talk about the stock market. Great little story. So it hit me in a minute. I said, after struggling, trying to explain in a corporate sense, equity and stock. I asked if anybody had dealt drugs in that room. And it was funny because we had a lot of white collar guys and different types. Every single guy raised their hand. Everybody had either done drugs, bought drugs, sold drugs, was around drug dealing, and understood drug dealing. And it was really an incredible response, including myself, by the way. I dealt weed when I was young. I dealt Quaaludes, cocaine. My story is littered with all these different type of things. I wasn't always the upstanding citizen that I am, sitting here before you today in my studio in Delray, Florida. And so I recognized this and said, has anybody ever sold pot, weed? Everybody raised their hand, pretty much. I said, okay, so what happens if I buy a pound from Jerry? I have that pound, right? And I sell that pound to John. So maybe I buy that pound for $1,000 and I sell it to John for $1,100. Make $100, right? I bought the pound. I sold the pound. Right away, the guys were correcting me. I don't know what kind of weed is it. People don't like to do pounds. They do kilos. And I was like, oh, they knew the street prices. They knew the wholesale prices. All right, I said, scratch that. Anybody familiar with cocaine? 3/4 of the class raises their hand. Okay. I said, I got connections. I know a guy, because he's in prison, who could get me a key right off the docks in Miami for $12,000. Right away, everybody got excited. And I understand you can move that kilo. The street price right now for a key in Miami is about $30,000. And there was a lot of debate about the street price. I said, let's say I go get that from Lenny, a key. He fronts it to me for $12,000. I go across town. I give it to John. I give him the key for $30,000. I just made $18,000 profit, correct? Well, why didn't you step on it? You can cut it if it's good blow. It comes in from outside this country. It's only been stepped on in maybe Mexico. Is it paste? Is it rock? Is it flake? I said, fellas, focus on the big picture. I bought a kilo. I sold a kilo. I made $18,000, right? Easy to understand. I'm writing this on a whiteboard. All right. Now let's get into some more detail. In the real world, if you have a company and your company does a certain amount of business and you want to sell it, you go to a business broker. In the private world, in the real business world, if you're one buyer or you're two people buying as partners a company, you're going to pay 2.2 to 3.7 times sales. So if I have a business, I made $1 million. My business generated $1 million this year. If I go to a business broker, the street price of my business is 2.2 million to 3.7 million. Depending on a few things, is the business mature? Is it young? Is it growing? Etc. I said, now, when you go to the stock market, if you take it to a brokerage firm or an investment bank and you say you want to sell the company, they say, hey, we have an idea. Why don't we break the company into small pieces? So I said, we're buying our key off the Miami docks, off Henry for $12,000. We're going to take that key back to my house. And we're going to break it up. Key is 2.2 pounds. We're going to break it up into ounces and then to 8 balls, eighths of ounces. And we're even going to package up some as grams. And now all of a sudden, we took our $12,000 key, which we could sell in one piece to Henry for $30,000, make $18,000, or we can take that key of cocaine and break it up into a whole bunch of pieces. And then we can market or sell those pieces. We could sell those 8 balls to Ross the broker. Or we could go to the disco on Saturday night and break it up into grams and half grams and sell those grams for $100 and those half grams for $60, etc. And all of a sudden they started to understand. So you mean to tell me when you bring your company to Wall Street, they break it up into pieces? That's exactly right. Not only do they break the company up into pieces, what they do is They then take those pieces, instead of going to Henry's house or to John's house and deliver them, or going to the disco, they created a marketplace where you can buy and sell those pieces. In a sense, you could gamble on them. You can buy them, like buying a gram for 100 and then cutting it up and selling it for 150. You can buy those pieces of a company for a certain price because you believe that company is going to do even better next year. They're going to get a big contract. You love the brand. You see the people in the mall buying up their stuff, and then you could resell it. They provide an entire market. And so the idea is, when you take your company to Wall Street and you decide to take it to the market, they will give you 15 to 20. So that same company that does $1 million, made $1 million last year, which would sell for about $2.5 million to $3.5 million privately to one buyer. It's if I buy one key and I sell one key. If I take that business down to Wall Street and I break it up into pieces, which we call shares, and we put those shares on the market, we can tell you with certainty you're going to get 15 to 20 million return. 15 to 20 million return versus just getting, $2.5 million to $3.5 million if you sell it in one piece. And I saw the light bulbs going on in their eyes. All of a sudden, they started to understand what stock was. That Wall Street was a bunch of friggin' dealers. And what they do is, and they're called broker dealers. That's actually what we're called on the street. Your company goes to a broker dealer. The broker dealer generally is also an investment bank or has a close relationship with one or several. And they take your company, they take your kilo, and they break it up into a bunch of pieces, and they allow everybody in the world to look at a market, which is all completely digital, as you know now, guys. Used to be you had to go to the market. Now it's completely digital and online, and you can buy and sell pieces of companies based on what you think that the prospects of the company are. And if I tell you it was like a bonanza, you would think that we were giving out lotto tickets for free. Everybody was so excited because all of a sudden, this thing called the stock market became sort of understandable. Now I'm simplifying it for everybody, but this is essentially what it is. You're bringing your company to a market, but the company has been doctored up. The company has been broken up into all kinds of pieces. And sometimes we create equity, we create debt, we create derivatives. These are all sorts of trading opportunities that are created when you have a market where you can basically speculate on the price of companies. I'll give you a great example. The markets have been open for hundreds of years, right? I think our stock market was created in about 1780, somewhere right around that time. Been open for hundreds of years. For the first time in the history of all markets on planet Earth, a company called NVIDIA, a company that solely made gaming chips many years ago, stock could barely keep $10 a share. NVDA is the symbol, has become the darling of the world. 4 weeks ago, it became the first $4 trillion company. The value of all its pieces, when combined, was over $4 trillion. I told everybody the market's going to go crazy. I told everybody to buy NVIDIA for the last 3 years like a broken record. My number one pick. My number two pick is Palantir, PLTR. My number three pick is IONQ. In 12 months from today, if you buy those stocks, you're going to love me. You're going to absolutely love me. You're going to worship me because you're going to make so much fucking money. I just want you all to know that NVIDIA, 4 weeks later, just crossed the $5 trillion mark. The value of its pieces now is over $5 trillion. So I want you all to understand, when you look at a stock, a company's stock, you're looking just at the pieces of the company. And what you're doing is you're speculating, will these pieces of the company be worth more next year, or would they be worth less? And there's so many factors that go into this. But for today, I just wanted to share with you a story, how I explained the beginnings of the stock market to a bunch of felons, criminals, inmates in federal prison. I want to thank you for tuning in today. My name is Ross Mandell. I'll see you soon.